Welcome to the fourth devlog for Gullywasher. I'm the dev Foster Turtle. Gullywasher is a story-driven Metroidvania centered around a sparrow named Finch and her quest to uncover the secrets of her new home, the rain-soaked forest floors of Arava. We've made a lot of progress over the past few weeks, and I've had a blast sharing each step of the way with you. I was optimistic about the potential to grow a small community in our little corner of YouTube, but I'm amazed by how quickly this community has grown, and humbled by all the encouraging feedback you've given me. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch these devlogs and join me on this journey. This week, I've been pouring my time into building out the pause screen and world map, as well as implementing some sound effects in the Gullywasher. I also finally added a new movement mechanic. The second unlockable movement mechanic in Gullywasher will be the dash. I was originally averse to the idea of implementing a dash because it is present in so many games. While I think it's important to distinguish yourself in any creative pursuit, paying homage to the things that inspire you can be important too. The classic saying, "Imitation is the highest form of flattery," hopefully holds water here. When I unlocked the dash in Hollow Knight, it completely changed my relationship with the movement mechanics in the game, made exploring a more enjoyable experience, and empowered me to find new places and fight new enemies. Heck, Celeste is a beautiful retro platformer, built on dashing elegantly around handcrafted challenges. The entirety of Celeste's gameplay centers around this one movement mechanic, and that's only mentioning 2 of the long list of indie games that inspired me to go ahead and add this mechanic to Gullywasher. Adding a dash to Gullywasher changed my relationship with its movement mechanics as well. The controls feel tighter and more responsive, allowing the player to zip around the map far faster than before. Balancing this mechanic was a delicate process, inspired by the Hollow Knight approach. Your dash will only reset when you touch the ground, grab a stalk, or hit an enemy. If I allowed the player to constantly dash through the environment, the new mechanic would outshine all of the other movement that I've worked so hard on. I would rather the player chain the dash and glide together instead of solely relying on one. You may have heard the phrase, easy to learn but hard to master. I'm aiming to design a movement system that hits that concept, but I still have a ways to go before I can fully dial it in. Similar to the glide, the dash will not be available to the player at the start of the game. It will be unlocked through exploration and discovery. Hopefully this creates an engaging reward, benchmarking the player's progress and accomplishments up to that point. My compromise for adding the dash in as the second unlockable movement mechanic will be adding more environment-based movement mechanics, not hidden away from the player. The climb ability is an example of this. I don't want to lock it behind a boss or a platforming challenge, but rather carefully choose when to introduce it to the player. I'd like to implement some other movement mechanics that the player naturally has, but that are not explicitly stated until they become relevant to the gameplay. I also think that this could add interesting replayability value, as people coming back to the game might realize that they could do something far earlier than they realized. This week, I also implemented my work on the pause screen and map menu. I've been putting this off for a while now. I find user experience and user interface design fascinating, but this was a daunting task because of how crucial this piece of game will be to the player. The pause screen will display the world map, Finch's location, player upgrades, and the options screen. My original plan for this system was to have a set of boxes fade onto the screen with all of the different displays. However, this felt discordant with the rest of the game, clashing with the world and the established art style. I decided instead to animate a scroll unrolling to display the map and upgrades. There's not a whole lot to say about the design process for this, or the implementation into the game, but I'm really pleased with how this came out, and I think it fits the world much better. Additionally, the wear on the paper was an effect that I had a lot of fun fiddling with to get just right. As a heads up, the map displayed is not the map for Gullywasher. A staple of the game will be player discovery, and it would be a real bummer if I spoiled the whole world for you before you even had a chance to experience it. The last thing I worked on this week was sound. Sound is vital in games, in the same way that visual feedback is. The patterns formed by audio will provide feedback to a player and help them build an understanding of what is happening over time. To find sounds that fit the tone of the game, I searched through freesounds.com for sounds marked Creative Commons or Public Domain. It's always best to check the description on sounds as they are sometimes mislabeled, but checking for these 2 tags will help you find sounds that you can use for free. I then manipulated the sounds in GarageBand to adjust their lengths or sample specific pieces. For some sounds, I created and mixed my own tracks, usually based around percussive instruments. To show what I mean, here's a quick clip of Gullywasher with the sounds implemented. Now that you've seen what each sound is associated with, listen to the audio with no visual feedback and see if you can track what is happening. Hopefully a few of the sounds stood out and you were able to tie them to actions. As a note, these sounds are not final, so let me know if there are any that you felt didn't quite fit. As a side note pertaining to sound, you can get a lot of use out of the same sounds by repitching them in your game engine. The engine I'm using does this by speeding the sounds up. For example, the sound I'm using for the jump is also used for the dash and attack sounds, but it's repitched to create a new effect. This is a good way to save space in your game if you're trying to keep the overall file size smaller. Additionally, creating a function that repitches your sounds randomly between two set values will add a bit of texture to the audio of your game. Playing the same sound over and over again can wear on a player's patience in the same way that other game elements might. Finally, I created a new music track for the next step of Finch's journey. I've mixed it into the background of this video along with the other track that I've been playing. Music is a great way to set tone and create player expectations. If you're interested in a breakdown of how I write music for my games, leave a comment below and I can make a video about music specifically. Gullywasher is finally at a point where I can start building the world outward around the base we've created. The main mechanics are implemented and the visuals and sound are at a point that I'm happy with for now. To reiterate from the beginning of the video, thank you for all of the great feedback, and thank you so much for watching as always. Stay positive, keep creating, and share your gifts with the world.